Good morning, everybody, and welcome to week 13 of our 15-week CWS 1 certification preparation course. And today we are going to do kind of a review session, and it's like a pre-review review. Because we are on week 15 going to talk a little bit about testing, and we're going to go through some of the sample quizzes and tests and stuff like that. But today we're going to kind of sum up a lot of stuff, and this is a little different than the way we normally do it. What I'm going to do today is ask you guys to participate quite a bit. So hopefully you have your chat screens available and open so that we can you can chat and give some answers to the scenarios and kind of go through and make sure that we are kind of see how you guys are how well you're able to recognize a lot of the problems and concerns that we're running across. One of the things the CWS exam does test is your practical knowledge. That means your ability to take what you've learned and apply it to real-life situations. So we're going to go through some of that. We have some scenarios today, and I'm hoping that we can get some participation from you guys. One of the things I would ask that you do today is make sure that when you're chatting, put it on public. Okay, if you could please put your chat on public so that everybody, we will record the chats. I want to make sure that everybody can see your chats and you know, so we can have a discussion, and that will add value as we do the recording, and you'll be able to go back and review and that kind of thing. Before we get started, I wanted to say thank you to all of you. Those of you, it looks like we're going to have a couple people watching this on recording. So thank you to all of you. I appreciate the opportunity to serve you in this way, and it is my goal every presentation that I give to make sure that the information that I give to you is at least as valuable as the time that you're giving to me. I very much appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We have, throughout the course of today's class, a lot of these situations. And we're going to assume that we know some of these things ahead of time, and I want to have discussion about them. I want to see what you guys recognize and what types of issues and concerns we might run across that, and how you would solve them, or what problems you might recognize and what you might do to take care of them. So situation number one, we've got two people in the house, two baths, no iron. There is hardness, 16 grains per gallon of hardness, and pH is 7.2, pretty normal for city water. Pressure is good, it's city water. We do have finished basement with drywalled ceilings, and there are multiple shower heads. So what are some of the things that we need to take into consideration here, and how do we treat it? How do we address them? So first off, what problem do we need to take care of here? What's the problem with the water here that we need to address? Sorry, taking a sip of coffee. Hardness, the trace heater. Yep, and let's just while we're here, what is if you saw the 16 grains per gallon of hardness on a water analysis form, how would you likely see it? What would you see if you saw? What would they rate it at 16 grains per gallon, or how would they likely list that 16 grains? And yeah, parts per million. And what would be the parts per million that they would? How many parts per million would you have? What would be the parts per million number? So they would list it as hardness in parts per million. That's right, 273.6, and we got that by calculating 16 times 17. It's actually 17.1. Yeah. 17.1. So 16 by 17.1 is how we calculate that. Good, good. Okay, so down here, the additional considerations, what else are we taking note of here? What else might we need to take into consideration on this one? When we're looking at the additional considerations, what might be an issue? Flow, that's right, flow rates. And that's because of the multiple shower heads. So what might be something we need to look at if we're putting, let's say they have chlorine in the water, or even a softener. You know, that 16 grains isn't that much. What would be the solution? A lot of times, how would you install it? What installation configuration might you use here to address the flow rates? What I'm looking for is a parallel installation. So you'd put even, you know, if you're because of flow rates, if you don't, sometimes you need 18 or 20 gallons a minute with those multiple shower heads, or the high flow shower heads. So traditionally, you're gonna, a lot of times you'll look at a paraflow installation, or running the systems, running water through both either filters or water softeners at the same time, so that you have those flow rates. All right, so what is this and what's it caused from? There's more pictures here. What is this and what are some of its causes? What can be, well, yeah, it's corrosion, definitely corrosion, okay, and some of the causes of corrosion. I actually took these two pictures, or I took in a home, in a house. These are two pictures that I took. It was bad, but not ferric iron. No, ferric iron. Well, it's going to cause. Yeah. So here are some causes of corrosion in the water. There are a few causes of it, but acidic water, low pH. That's right, John. So acidic water, low pH in the water would definitely cause it, but also high pH or a lot of dissolved oxygen. This particular situation here was caused from dissolved oxygen in the water, and it wreaked havoc on the copper plumbing. So dissolved oxygen in the water also made it, and the water actually had a higher pH. What's another cause of corrosion that we talked about? If you go back and you're looking at what would be another cause, a third cause. So low pH of the water. We've also got free oxygen in the water. What was another cause? A common cause, one that you see quite frequently, especially in houses that have had dissimilar metals. Excellent, John. That's right. Galvanic action, dissimilar metals. That's exactly right. So, and that is caused from when you're breaking up that flow of the conductivity in the water, and the weaker of the metals is going to corrode. So, very good. How do you fix that? How do you address that? If you're going from copper to galvanized, for example, what do you have to use in order to prevent that? There's two things that we talked about that you would use to prevent that that galvanic action, or that corrosion from dissimilar metals. Unions, that's right, insulating unions. Very good. And then also we talked about a strap, a conductivity strap or a grounding strap that's going to go from one to the other. So, all right, here's our second situation. We have 4 people in the house, 2 baths. Hardness is only at 2 grains per gallon. Iron is actually pretty high, 1.5 parts per million. Flow dissolved solids is pretty high. pH is pretty low. And they're getting some staining in the toilets, some crusty stuff around the faucet, and their clothes are staining. So tell me what we probably are seeing in this house. So this is the raw water. Their largest concerns are staining in the toilets, crusty stuff around the faucet. But what are we probably seeing? Yeah, definitely there's an iron problem here. And so we're going to need to address the iron. What's going to be the difficulty in addressing this iron? What's the problem that we're going to run into in taking the iron out? And how would we treat it? I mean, we've got 2 grains per gallon of hardness. How would we treat it? Yeah, the pH is definitely low too. We're going to need to fix that pH as well. So let's take the iron first, though. What's the problem that we're going to run into with treating iron this high? What's one of the problems we're going to run into? I'll help you guys out with this because it is something we talked about, but we talked about it pretty quickly. You have to have, in order for a water softener, for ion exchange to work, to remove the iron, you have to have a certain amount of hardness in the water, usually 2 to 3 grains for every part per million of iron. So ion exchange may not do very well here on this iron alone because you don't have enough hardness in the water. So you've got pretty close to, I mean, it's low hardness in the water. So what you would probably install, what would be a unit or a system you would put on this? What equipment would you put in this situation? In fact, they may already have a portion of this equipment because they're seeing, yeah, calcite. That's right, John. That's exactly right. Good. So you would put in a calcite filter here first, and then you would put in a water softener. So, and they may already have a calcite filter because notice they're getting crusty stuff around the faucet. So they may have a calcite filter without a water softener here because you are, when you add the calcite filter, going to add hardness to the water. So the calcite is going to bring the pH up. It is also going to increase the hardness. Calcite is going to work to not only take out some of the iron, but it's also going to it'll bring the hardness and the pH up as well. And then you would put a water softener in after that calcite filter. You do need a sediment filter after that calcite filter and before the softener as well because of the calcite fines that you're going to get. What's another problem? There's one other issue here that we need to address that is definitely worth talking about or discussing. Another problem that we have here. ITDS, very good, Peter. Yeah, EPA's minimum or their secondary drinking water recommendations say that anything over 500 is of questionable aesthetic quality. Okay, not going to hurt you any. You know, it's not a safe or unsafe issue. It's an aesthetics issue. But their secondary recommendations are under 500. So you're up there, and the TDS definitely would have an impact here. Yeah, absolutely. And reverse osmosis would work for sure on this. Although, you know, you have to make sure that you have enough pressure. The pressure is pretty adequate here. 40-60 should be good enough to handle it. Although certainly with TDS that high, the water, it is going to produce water slower than what would normally happen. I mean, if the higher the TDS, the slower the water is produced. So, but yeah, a reverse osmosis system is going to will work here in this situation. You want to definitely have a softener in before it. All right, what kind of mixture is this? And I'll make this multiple choice. A homogeneous mixture, a heterogeneous mixture, a compound, or an ionic mixture. That's right, it's B. No such thing as far as I'm aware of an ionic mixture. A compound is something completely different, and this is a heterogeneous mixture, B. Okay, and that we know what the difference between a homogeneous mixture and a heterogeneous mixture is that a homogeneous mixture is the same all the way through. Okay, so when you take a sample from, if you have well, Kool-Aid is a homogeneous mixture. Remember, okay, and so remember the creepy Kool-Aid guy. Okay, that's a homogeneous mixture. A heterogeneous mixture, a bowl of mixed nuts, for example, if you take a sample out of that out of that bowl, on one side of the bowl you may have different substances on one side than you have on the other side, in different amounts. So you different amounts of sunflower seed, different amounts of M&Ms, and it looks like this one is beans, but beans and rice it looks like, but that's a heterogeneous mixture. All right, situation 3. 6 people in the house, 3 baths, hardness 28, iron 3 parts per million, total dissolved solids is 600, pH 6.6. What are we going to run into here? What problems do we need to address, and how do we address them? What are we dealing with here? So iron, TDS, and hardness. So how do we what do we need to do? What types of equipment do we need to put in here to take care of this? First off, we need to determine, iron's pretty high. So we need to determine whether it's clear water iron or oxidized iron, don't we? Because remember, a water softener will not remove oxidized iron or ferric iron. So we need to determine whether or not whether it's oxidized iron or clear water iron. But let's assume that it's all clear water iron. What's the problem that we're going to run into here? What are we going to, let's assume that this is all clear water iron. We've got a compensated hardness of, if you go by the WQA guidelines of, what's our compensated hardness? Let's ask you guys if we go by WQA. Peter, the smell is, this is like sometimes you ask a customer on a scale of 1 to 10, what that is. And let's say that this, probably this smell is, somebody's saying it's a 2. It's probably going to be mostly iron in the water. They're going to smell it metallic. A lot of times I've found that people have a hydrogen sulfide smell. But yeah, we're going to need to determine what is the smell, and is the smell gone when after we run it through our mini, after we take the iron out. So we're going to run it through our mini here, and we're going to make sure that the iron's coming out of the water. Well, what's our compensated hardness? If you look at, and remember, unfortunately, the current exam for WQA does not talk about compensated hardness. So you're not going to calculate anything, you're not going to answer any of the questions based on compensated hardness, but the reality is compensated hardness is something we use in the field. WQA does recommend 3 times the iron. So you multiply the iron times 3 and you add it to the hardness. So that gives us a compensated hardness of 37. So we've got an issue here, though, with just a regular water softener. We've got 6 people in the house. How many gallons a day does the average person use according to WQA? How many gallons of water does the average person use a day? Anybody know that? Average person, according to Water Quality Association, uses 75 to 100 gallons of water a day. Generally, we'll calculate it on 75. And if you look at any city water report, that's, a municipal report, that's pretty accurate too. You can pull them out. So about 75 gallons of water a day. So the problem here is we've got a compensated hardness of 37. So if they're using 75 gallons of water a day, that means that, or 75 gallons of water per person per day, that means they're using 300 gallons a day. Am I calculating that right? 75? No, they're actually using 450 gallons of water a day. You take that times, 450 times 37. That means that they're going to be using 16,000 grains of hardness. They have to soften 16,000 grains of hardness a day. And with iron that high, they're going to be blowing through salt pretty quick too, because you're going to have to over-salt the heck out of this thing in order to handle the iron and the hardness and keep it regenerating. So they're going to be dumping a lot of water down into a drain at one time. This might be a candidate. Also, they're going to have variable water usages. This might be a candidate for either a duplex installation or a twin tank system that keeps track of the water, particularly with the twin tank, because it cleans in soft water, or installing two systems. Now you can certainly put in a single tank, and there are many of them out there today that would work really well, but they are going to use more water, and you definitely want a demand system here. Definitely want a demand system for sure. So there is one thing here. If you calculate we've got 600 parts per million of total dissolved solids in this one. Okay, so that's 28 times 17.1 equals 478. We know that 478 parts per million of that 600 there is calcium magnesium hardness. Okay, so, and we know that 3 parts per million of it. So we have 481 parts per million accounted for of that parts per million. Okay. Any questions on this scenario? Okay, let's move forward. What's this used to treat? What is this? Is it used to treat methane, sulfur, iron, or arsenic? Methane, very good. Yep, it is used to treat methane. That's right. This is a video of a customer that I actually took last year just on my iPhone, and I want to play this for you guys. This is actually pretty cool. If you've never seen this, watch this. This is actually pretty neat. So this guy had all kinds of gas in his water. And see how milky, if you can see how it looks milky. That's dissolved gas in the water. It's flammable. Now if you look on the top of that water, you can actually see it bubble. Now watch from the bottom. You'll see that gas start to dissipate out of this bottle. Watch it start to rise towards the top. You'll see the bottom of the bottle clear up. You'll see it start to clear up. Did it freeze up? Uh-oh. Wait a minute, let's see. Yeah, okay, here. Okay, watch. Okay, you see how the bottom of that is starting to clear up? Can you guys see this okay? It does happen, yeah, you are getting some of this with, you know, there's some question of whether or not, I mean, this is part of the controversy. If you watch Gasland, yeah, they're lighting. Actually, it's not only that, methane's naturally occurring in the ground too. The first time I ever saw this was in my, about 15 minutes north of where I live now, actually. It was my sales territory when I was out in sales, and a guy had water, and he lit it. And I mean, just took a lighter to a bottle of water. Poof. It was wild, and that was before there was any fracking around here or anything. So there are methane lines that run naturally through the ground too. But this is pretty cool. Do a YouTube search. You can see people light their water on fire. You can see some of that. Or if you watch, there's the fracking movie Gasland, and Gasland 2, you'll see it quite a bit there too. Just be aware that those, we have on Moti-Vitality.com, if you guys didn't hear, if you weren't there live, I actually had a very objective fracking expert on the call, and you can go to the conference call page of Moti-Vitality.com. It's part of your, you guys are all members of the website, so you'll be able to listen to that call. He talked a lot about hydraulic fracturing and what the process was and how it worked, and it was a really, really good call. That was on our Thursday morning MB Pro call. If you haven't listened to that already, I recommend you download and listen to that. It's about 45 minutes, and it was really, really valuable information on how the fracking worked and what all, kind of the truth about the whole fracking controversy. Okay, situation 4. Yeah, everything's high across the board here. So we've got 24 grains of hardness, iron, 4 parts per million of iron, 1.5 of oxidized, 600 parts per million of total solids. This is a real customer, by the way. I took the scenario directly from one of my customers. Now the water looks like somebody peed in it when they fill a white tub. They're concerned with drinking the yellow-greenish water. They also have a lot of iron and a foul taste. What might that be? What might that be? Any idea what the yellowish green water might be? It could be. They have a lot of kids. That's right. It could be pee. That is one possibility. This very well could be tannins. Okay, tannins or decayed vegetation, organics. Here in Michigan, we have a lot of wetlands, a lot of woods, a lot of marshy area, and yeah, it could also be caused by the iron. Exactly. What I ran into this when I first went into sales. A lot of times, what would happen is you would have people. They would go out and they would tell people automatically it was tannins. I mean, you really have to be a detective. You have to look around and determine, because you treat it differently. So what would happen is people would go out and they'd run somebody would have high iron. Oh yeah, the softener worked great. It'll work great, and they'd come in, $1,000 or $1,500 less than what I was quoting, because I would actually test water and run the water through a mini and realize that no water softener will take out oxidized iron. So if you've got 4 parts per million of iron in the water and you've still got 2 parts per million after you run it through the mini, you're going to have all kinds of problems, because that water softener will not remove that oxidized iron. So in a year, you're going to find yourself having to go back and tell that customer, oh, sorry, you now have to put in an iron filter. Now, this happened when I first came into sales. I used to see this all the time, where customers would be in that situation. They'd feel nickel and dimed to death. So I learned to start running, when I had iron that high especially, I would run water through my mini to make sure that when I promised the customer that my softener was going to work, that it really would work. And I would tell them, you have oxidized iron here, and I would explain to them how it worked and show it to them, and it really helped. It helped them kind of prepare for it. Now, sometimes they would still go with that other customer or that other company that promised that they would have, that their softener would fix the problem. Oh yeah, no problem. But then a year later, when they were still getting iron stains, they would come to me to buy the iron filter instead of going back to the other company. But this is one of those situations where tannins, if you just are testing for iron, and most of the test kits out there, tannins will show up as iron. And they will still show up after the mini, because the mini water softener is not going to remove it. I mean, you need an anion resin to take out the tannins in the water. So the mini softener won't remove it. So basically in this situation, what I've done here is I've run the water through the mini, and I've still seen that I have oxidized, and I retest for the iron after I test the softened water, retest it for iron, and I'm still seeing 1.5 parts per million of iron coming out. Now I need to determine whether or not that 1.5 parts per million of iron that's showing up on my iron test is actually iron, or if it's organics like tannins. Okay, because I'm going to treat them differently. I might oxidize that. I might use a closed pressure aeration system if it's oxidized iron to take all the iron out, so turn all the iron into ferric iron and then filter it out before I run it through a water softener. I might do that. However, if it's tannins in the water, I can't oxidize tannins. I can't pump air. I can't use a closed pressure aeration system on tannins because what will happen is that it turn those organics into almost like tree sap. It will glue them together. It'll glue the media together because the tannins will turn sticky. The organics will get really gooey and sticky. So I need to determine that. And one of the ways, even if you don't have a tannin test kit, and they do make tannin test kits with organics, but even if you don't have a tannin test kit, then hopefully you have these little 1 micron pleated filters in your test kit, and you can run that softened water with the 1.5 per million of iron still in it through those little 1 micron pleated filters. Now, if you do not have 1 micron pleated filters in your test kit, then take 5 coffee filters and put them together and run the softened water through there. It's going to be very slow. It's going to drip through them very slowly. Okay. And then once you've run it through that filter, retest it for iron again. If the water is clear, if you're getting no iron in the water, then it was probably oxidized iron, because those filters will take out oxidized iron. It's going to filter out the oxidized iron. If you're still getting iron, if you're still coming up positive for iron, then probably it's tannins, it's organics, okay, that's causing that. So that's just a quick way to determine whether or not it's tannins or iron. So yeah, you definitely need to determine that. You've got plenty of pressure here with 50-70. Probably if it's set up that high, you've probably got enough water pressure to take out the to put in an iron filter if you need to, or even a tannin system. One of the other issues here, you really do have high pH here as well, 7.8, and if it is tannins, you've got to bring the pH down. And so you would need a citric acid drip or some sort of an acid feed in order to bring the pH down, because a tannin unit needs lower pH in order to work. The anion resin to take out the organics need lower pH. So you've got to lower the alkalinity and the pH of the water. Any questions on this scenario? Okay. What's this and how do you treat it? Here's some more pictures of it. I took these pictures also with the customer, from a customer's house. What is this? Yes, this is definitely organics, but this is going to be bacterial iron. Okay, it's bacteria in the water. It's bacterial iron. And so, how would you treat that? How would you treat it? No, you would not. You definitely would not want to run. Potassium permanganate would work as a disinfectant. I mean, it does work as a disinfectant. You would definitely need. You can't even run this through a UV because the gelatinous, the iron bacteria would clog it would coat the ultraviolet light. So you need potassium permanganate would probably work because potassium permanganate does act as a disinfectant. But what most people would do here is chlorinate. They would put a chlorinator in, either chlorine or peroxide. You definitely do not want to aerate this to take out the iron, because bacteria would be like, oh, yay, oxygen, we'll love it. So they would be growing like crazy. But this also could indicate a problem with the well. If you're getting a lot of bacteria in the well coming out, this could indicate a problem with the well as well. So, but yeah, you would, bleach would probably be the most common. A chlorine feed, a chlorine injection unit would probably be the most common treatment for this. So you would put in the chlorinator and the chemical feed pump to disinfect the water to kill the bacteria, and then it would need to be filtered out. So yeah. Okay, situation 5. We've got hardness at 28, total dissolved solids at 800. Iron is 6 parts per million. We know for sure that this is 3 parts per million of oxidized iron. We're going to say that. pH is 8.5. We have a jet well pump, really bad iron and a nasty smell. No basement, only crawl space with a dirt floor and a lot of cobwebs. And before you start talking about sending out the installer that you don't like, let's eliminate that as an option to send the installer we don't like out there. What do we do in this situation? What do we do here? This also is a real scenario, a real customer that I have had here in Michigan. Yeah, there's a problem here. Let me just give you a hint on this one. Part of your WQA certification, part of your Water Quality Association certification is agreeing to a code of ethics and a standard of professionalism and work ethic. On this one, our job is to serve our customers, and sometimes the best way to serve them is to educate them and walk away from it. Okay, the reality here is that we are not, with traditional equipment, are not going to be able to make them happy. Now, we can educate them. We could probably put in a water softener here and reduce their hardness and reduce some of their iron, but it is not going to take away their staining. It's not going to backwash well because they have a jet well pump with very, very low pressure. 2040 on the pressure is very low pressure. There are too many problems here. Too many problems for us to be able to address with the equipment. They need to get a better well with better pressure. This particular situation was a real one. It was a cabin around a lake, and they had a 2-inch well, which the well company wouldn't even service. They told them they had to dig a new well. So yeah, the pump they actually, with the jet well pump with that much iron, there's no way you're going to be able to put an iron filter in of any type here because you're simply not going to have enough water pressure to backwash it, and it's going to fail quickly. So sometimes the best way to serve your customer is to walk away or run, as some people have said. Okay. Situation 6. Well, a bigger well tank here on this one is not going to make a difference. All a well tank does is extends the life of the well pump. Pressure tank, it keeps the pressure tank from switching on and off. A bigger well tank does not increase the water pressure. All it does is the bigger the tank, the less often the pump has to kick on and off. So the problem here is that you've got a jet pump that is only going to give you, 2 to 5 gallons a minute at max anyway. They're just not going to provide you with a lot of water pressure. And so regardless, it's not going to be enough to backwash sustained, to give you enough sustained flow rate to backwash an iron filter. Okay, all right, situation 6, hardness 24, iron 2 parts, hydrogen sulfide 25 parts per million, pH is pretty low, we've got some smell, lots of smell, and also some iron staining. There's no electricity within 20 feet. They do have a 3-year-old competitor quality water metered system using an extension cord. They're happy with the softener, but unhappy with the service. What do you guys recommend? What do you do in a situation like this? They got hydrogen sulfide, which is pretty bad. I mean, how do you treat the hydrogen sulfide first? What do you use to treat that? Probably we're going to use a closed pressure aeration system for this hydrogen sulfide unit, or to remove the hydrogen sulfide. So we're going to use a closed pressure aeration system with a media in it that is designed for sulfur, and we're probably going to need a peroxide or a chlorine injector in order to help convert the gas into an elemental form so that it can be filtered out. Okay, that's going to help raise the pH when we do that. When we add the chlorine or the peroxide, that will help raise the pH. They aren't happy with their water softener, so we're not going to go in there and bash the competitor. The softener is only 3 years old and it's working. They're happy with the softener. What we're going to do is focus on our service here. We also are going to recommend, because they should not be using an extension cord to put this in, so we're going to recommend installing, either if our company doesn't do it, then we're going to, it's an excellent opportunity to have a referral, to have a relationship with a local electrician. Because remember, he's in the same homes that you want to be in. He's in the same basements. He's in the same houses. So it would be an excellent opportunity to build a relationship with somebody that you can recommend to put in a plug. Or the customer can do it themselves. A plug's fairly easy to install, but a lot of people don't know how to do that. Okay, let's move on. All right, this one does make me laugh. Tell me first, let's start with the components that you see in this picture. What are we looking at here? What are some of the components that we're seeing? What is this guy? Let's start with this up here. What is this long silver thing up here? This thing right here, what is this? That's a UV lamp, that's right. Okay. What is this right here? What is that? It's a jet pump. That's actually the well pump. That's when if you've never seen one, you'll notice it actually plugs in. What are some of the, and this right here obviously is the pressure tank. Tell me some of the things that we're seeing wrong in this picture. There's a lot of things wrong about this picture, but what are some of the things that we're seeing wrong about it? Right, there are no filters in the housings, that's true. There's an extension cord, yeah, but how would you like to be the one to change those filters right over the top of this guy? I suspect that that's probably against code. This little power surge thing right there. Also, look at the installation here. What do we have? Copper. We have, most installations, and that's right, John. Most installations require water treatment equipment to be at least 3 foot from the electrical panel. That's usually code in most places. We're also noticing here, what are we looking at here? Notice copper and PVC. Copper, PVC, copper, PVC. That's going to have we're going to have a break in conductivity there. And all kinds of problems wrong with this. There are no filters in the cartridges. You're right about that. And also, I don't know what's going on with this. I just found this picture and it made me laugh. But yeah, the valve's off. That's right. The valve is off. That's exactly what I was going to say, Peter. So hopefully this has been shut down before it's redone. Hopefully this was not done by your installers. Because if so, he needs some training. Yeah. Okay. That is probably, Peter, you're probably right. That is, the homeowner probably did do it himself, and he probably got that off the internet and put it in himself. You're exactly right. That's very likely what happened. Making a very strong case for having professional installers do the work. All right. Situation 7, hardness 26, hardness 450 parts per million. More than adequate on the pressure, we'll say that. It's a submersible pump. There is scale buildup. This house is on a golf course, and there's an infant in the home. What are we going to worry about here? What might we want to test for? What might we want to test for here? Nitrates. Very good, John. Yeah. Nitrates are caused from what? Why would there be a nitrate issue here? Nitrates are caused from, yeah, the fertilizers. So the pesticides, fertilizers, exactly right. And infants are mostly susceptible to, what's the disease that we run into here? Jamie, you spell golf about the way I golf. So they nicely done on the GOG course. That might as well be what my game is. So, but yeah, blue baby syndrome or methemoglobinemia, and I won't make you guys try and spell that. But yeah, methemoglobinemia is the or blue baby syndrome. Exactly. Very good. Situation 8. We've got a softener in the house that works really well at the beginning of the month, but not so much at the end of the month. It's a community well. They're getting some staining. They've got 2 parts per million of iron in the water and 22 grains of hardness. So what are we probably running into? What are we probably running into here? Why would the softener work really well at the beginning of the month, but not so much at the end of the month? Probably not the low flow. We'll assume that the flow is adequate, that they're getting plenty of water pressure. This is also came from a real situation that I ran into. This was at actually a mobile home park, and they were adding, what happened is this was one of the few customers that had a water softener in the mobile home park, and the reason they were still getting staining, they were getting staining at the end of the month was because in the middle of the month, usually around the 15th or so of the month, they added in this community well polyphosphates, sequestering agents. And so what was happening is the water was running through when they put in those polyphosphates that coated the iron and prevented the water softener from removing the iron, because as the iron went through, it coated. That coating, the sequestering of that iron, prevented it from sticking to the resin beads. Okay, so the result was that the iron would go right through the water softener, and then it would break down with heat and with time. So it would sit in the water heater, and in those it would break down. The reason it would work towards the beginning of the month is those polyphosphates, it would start to work better as those polyphosphates ran out of the water. It would start to work better. The softener would start to function better because the ion exchange would actually be able to work. So, that was what happened in this situation. You can actually address that iron by putting in, an oxidizing filter, an iron filter. Of course, in a mobile home, there's space issues as well as sometimes money issues. But that's what we ran into in this situation. Anion resin actually will work. We found some left with anion resin also to remove those polyphosphates as well. Why would you install cartridge filters in this way? Why would you do this? What would be the purpose? Better flow, that's right. Yeah, for flow, good. It's called a parallel installation. Situation 9, the water looks like, we already talked about this, I already showed the video on this, but we've got 24 grains of hardness, 2 parts of iron, 500 parts per million of total dissolved solids. Water looks like milk when it comes out of the faucet and has a lot of little white bubbles that slowly rise to the top of the glass right after it comes out of the faucet. pH is pretty low here. What do we need to treat this? What are we going to use to treat it? It's probably methane or dissolved oxygen in the water. It's gas in the water, but what are we going to use to treat this? Any idea? So we're going to use a closed pressure, or I'm sorry, an open gravity aeration system. This is the big tank that we put in that allows the water to vent out of the side of the house. That's going to allow the gas to vent out. That, guys, is this week's review. So next week, oh, you know what? I forgot to change. Scratch it. Forget this review class Tuesday, September. I didn't change that off the last class I taught. Sorry about that. This was for EWQA. So forget the review class. That's not relevant to you guys. Next week we are talking about the Code of Ethics, WQA Code of Ethics. You're going to want to read the Legal Considerations book and study the Code of Ethics. A lot of really important stuff next week. There are questions on the legal considerations and Code of Ethics that you're going to want to talk about, that we will be there next week, talking about next week. So any final questions over today, about today, from today, or anything else? Okay, with that then, everybody have a great weekend, and I will talk to you guys next week, if not before. Thanks, everybody. Oh, Peter, I will, let me see if I can shoot. Do you have my email address, Peter? I'm going to stop recording here. Okay, shoot me an email.